I am recording right now from my classroom, my home classroom, and I am going to demonstrate the grade transfer program. If you go to grade transfer, you can see it up here, .com, you can download this tool, grade transfer, one R right here. I always spell it wrong. Uh, you can download this tool. It runs inside the Chrome browser. So you need to be using the Chrome browser to use it. What it allows you to do is to copy grades from uh, um, a whole variety of tools into Aspen without having to type the grades. And I'm just sitting on my side and I'm reacting to something. My fan on my computer is making a lot of noise, and I just installed a tool that costs me some money, but I'm pretty happy about it. And I know some of you who might have small kids out there might really love this tool. It's called Crisp. And you probably can't hear the fan noise much at all. I tested it with and without. Here, I'll disable it just for a minute here, and you can see this is Crisp, just kind of a bonus that I just installed, and so I'm having a lot of fun with it. This is with it enabled, and if your kid pounding on the wall, I wonder how it sounds, but I'm guessing you can't hear that anywhere near as much as right now. I disable Crisp, and that's what that sounded like before. Okay, so enough of the bonus. Back to what the bread and potatoes of this video is about. Grade transfer tool. You make the decision that you're going to spend $250 a month on it. Yet another expense of this remote teaching world, but it saves you an immense amount of time. Saves me an immense amount of time, and I recommend it. Jim Muncie, who I worked through, he actually taught me a bunch about this tool. He noticed that there's not a option within the menu system to disable that renewal payment. It's a very small team that made the tool, and they don't have that feature. So you actually have to send them an email. So I recommend once you get this that you put in your calendar some reminder to go and cancel it when appropriate. Or what I always do when I'm trying out a new tool like this, I put a reminder in there a month from now to say cancel this if you haven't used it. If it's not actually, if it's not worth the $250 a month. Okay. Uh, and that fan noise really is loud. I wonder what it's going to sound like on the recording. The tools that I'm using, the reason the fan noise is so loud, I'm using down here, you can see QuickTime to make this video. And I am happy to do a video if you're interested in how to make videos. I've been making a bunch of them, and I'm pretty happy with what I've figured out. When we got the news that we're going full remote, I went out and got myself a new webcam and a good microphone, and started to think about these videos as more than just, the short term, what I'm doing right now kind of thing, and potentially for the rest of the year, who knows. So let's use the tool. First thing I'm going to do is go over into Khan Academy and click the grade transfer icon. This icon will show up after you've installed it into Chrome. So you need to click Add to Chrome. Opens the tool up in the Chrome Web Store, and then you install it. When you first install it, this icon here, this extensions, the grade transfer icon won't show up. So what you have to do is you have to click extensions. You have to go down and you have to see where it says pin here. This is a little pin. When it's first installed, it will show up grade like that, which means it's not going to be in your extension bar. So you have to turn it on. And once you do that, now the extension is available for use. And I'm going to show you what the extension looks like. So if you click the extension, it pulls up this menu here. By default, when you first get the tool, it won't say select platform. The default setting in grade transfer is to automatically detect your platform, which is pretty cool. And Jim Muncie uses it that way. And if you want to use it that way, more power to you. I feel a little nervous about it. I had a couple of mishaps with data using that, and so I've come up with some strategies that I believe make it a completely safe tool to use. But you know, it's nice not to have to say, I'm pulling from Google Classroom, I'm putting it in Aspen without with if I turn on auto detect, now I just hit grab data and it's going to grab the data that's on the page. There's no data here, so it's going to say, wait, what are you talking about? I can't grab this data. There's no data. But if you're on a page that has data, it'll suck it in, and then you go over to Aspen and fill it, and it puts it out. But I'm going to turn it off so that I can show you the choices that the tool gives you. So if you hit select platform, you can see all of the places that it can grab data from: Google Classroom, Schoolology, Alex, Edulastic, Adhesive, College Board AP website. And Google Sheets is a really important one. That means that you can take your data from a spreadsheet and put it into Aspen. So there's a whole bunch of tools that output data that is spreadsheet compatible or directly into a spreadsheet. Khan Academy, for instance, the site that we're looking at now, outputs the data into a CSV file that you can open in a spreadsheet. Before, I had to do a bunch of work in the spreadsheet and then manually copy that data into Aspen. Now I just suck it out of the spreadsheet and put it right into Aspen. Uh, the You can use Delta Math this way. Nearpod, if you're using Nearpod and collecting scores in Nearpod, you can get Nearpod to send you the data, and you can put that into a spreadsheet and pull that into Aspen. And it fills all these different gradebook softwares, including Followed Aspen, which is what you're going to use. I imagine all of you are going to use, and including me. That's the only one I use. Let's see. I wanted to demonstrate pulling data from Google Classroom first. This is I think, one of the more straightforward ones. If you noticed when we went here, there's a built-in tool to pull from Google Classroom, right? It can pull right from Google Classroom, so you don't have to generate a spreadsheet of it. Google Classroom has the ability to take your data, all of your data over here, and dump it into a spreadsheet. You can do that, but you don't have to with this tool. So using this, you could download all the grades in a CSV, just like in Khan Academy, but you don't have to. All you have to do is, once you're on this page, you're like, I want to pull this data for all these students and put it into Aspen. You need to be on the individual assignment, right? You need to make sure you have your students here and your grades here. But then all you do is you hit grade transfer and you hit select platform and you hit Google Classroom, and it gives you this message that says, this is the data of 28 students that were successfully retrieved. And you can see all the student data pulled in right there. And you look at it quickly, make sure they match up maybe, especially when you're first using the tool, to build your trust in the tool. Then you hit OK. And what you next do is you go over to Aspen. I don't know if you noticed when I hit OK, I kind of had to hit OK 3 or 4 times. That happens to me every once in a while. It makes me nervous, but I haven't noticed any problems with it. And you can always go into Open Grade Transfer up like this, and you can see the 28 students right here, and you can click that suitcase, and it just pulls back up that screen that we just saw that allows you to kind of confirm, oh yeah, okay, it looks like it's got those 28 grades all sucked in. Okay, and then you go over to Aspen, and I've been logged out because I've taken 3 takes on this. And log back in. Go to my grade book and my scores. You do not, in my opinion, you do not want to put the grades. You can, but I recommend against putting the grades in on this screen right here. The reason why is if as grade transfer is putting the grades into this column, if it accidentally jumps over to this column and puts a grade or two right here, then you're going to lose the data that's in this column. So the workaround that I figured out for this is you use, there's a magnifying glass with an arrow icon right here next to the lock. And it says enter single assignment mode for why am I here. So what this does is it poops me down into the individual assignment mode for that assignment. And now I can stick the data in here. And I set this up so it's not actually going to work the first time I do it. And I'll explain why it doesn't work. I think it's important to do this way first. So I hit select platform. Note that I've got my cursor in one of the cells in the column that I want to enter data in. It can be on any cell in the column. And then I hit this. I say select platform. I've got my 28 grades, and I choose Follett Aspen, and it tells me, are you sure you want to do it? Are you really sure that you're going to do this 28 grades? You hit OK, and nothing happened. Transferred data 0. Let's troubleshoot. Are you doing something wrong? What went wrong? Okay, when this happens to you, if it happens to you, there's a few different things that could have gone wrong. The easiest, most likely thing is that it's not able to match the names in the column. So if you look back at the data, once it note that once grade transfer drops this, I can't just go up here to look at the data. It's now, since it's dumped the data, it's out of the system. It's not available anymore. I've got to go back to Google Classroom, grab the data again. Once I have the data, confirm it. And again, I have to hit OK 3 times. Not sure why that is. Go back to Aspen and look at the data here. Here, student name, first name, last name. Student name, first name, last name in a grade. Student name, first name, last name in a grade, right? So it's trying to match students in that format up, and it's not able to do it because all of my names are in 2 columns. So it's not able to match those students at all. So all I need to do is I need to go up to this field select field here and choose. And there's a lot of field sets that work. The default field set is the one that I imagine most of you are familiar with. And so I'm going to choose that one, but programmatic fields works. The thing is that you need the names all in one field, and I've blurred out the names so you can't see them, but now all of the names in this column, all these names are all in this column in one thing, and they're actually in the order of last name, comma, space, first name, and then middle names, but it will work in this order. It's just that the name needs to all be in one cell. So now when I go to grade transfer and try to put or fill the data into Aspen, it will give me the warning again. Are you sure you want to do it? Yes. And it will be successful. And look at that. Just in a second, it successfully plooped all those grades in there. Note, it did miss one student at the end, and I have observed this a number of times that it does this. I don't know why this happens, but I like to read and confirm. So correct grade, correct grade, correct grade, correct grade, right? And I see, okay, yeah, it looks like it's doing all the correct grades. And you can't see this because it's blurred, but I've just confirmed a bunch, and I noticed that it didn't do the last one. Okay, so what do I have to do? Well, I just go into here and I manually enter that last one. I don't know why it didn't succeed at one of them. Sometimes it succeeds at all the cells. Sometimes it misses one. It's better than typing all of these. And to really make that case, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go back to view all my assignments, and I'm going to look at this row, this column, sorry, with all of this grade data in it. Look at all that grade data. That's a lot of data. 84.375. That's annoying to type. 84.375. I don't want to do that. Well, look what I'm going to do. Delete, 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 delete. No fear at all of doing this. Why? Because in just a few seconds, I can put all that data back in, right? Before this tool, whoops, I went over and deleted one in another cell. So I'm going to hit Command Z to undo it and put the grade back in. But before I had this tool, I would not want to do that with a column of data that I'm going to have to manually re-enter. Okay, so now how do I get this data? Well, this data is some Khan Academy data. So I'm going to show you how to pull data from Khan Academy now. Back over to Khan Academy. First of all, you have to choose the class that you're pulling grade data from. I'm going to choose my class. And then you need to go to settings. And in the settings, so when you're in Khan Academy down here under settings, it gives you the ability to download a comma separated values file with all the grade data in it. And click it. It takes a minute to do, so I'm not going to have all you wait through it with me. I've already downloaded it. And after I download it, what I do is I go to Google Classroom, and I find this is the fastest and easiest way. I just take it and drag it up and pop it into a folder in Google Drive. So now I have this data. Here's the CSV file that I grabbed and put in here. You click this file, excuse me, click this file, it brings up this view here, and I'm not going to create another opportunity for me to have to blur a bunch of data, but what you do, actually, I'll do it. I think it's worth doing. You click this arrow here, and down here, you can open this CSV file in Google Sheets. And you click and do that. And that also takes a minute to do, so I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go over. I've already pulled all of the student data in. This is a little tricky, but what I need to do, you'll notice that this data, well, you won't because you can't see some of it probably, but the way the data is organized from Khan Academy, it gives me a list of all the assignments. There's a whole bunch of assignments here. For each assignment, like this is 28 rows of data here, all for the same assignment. And for each student, then I have the student name, and I have the score that they got at the date the assignment was due, and the score that they best ever did on that assignment, and the points that are possible on the assignment. And a bunch of other data. But what I want to be able to do is I want to get the scores for a student on several different assignments. This is a perfect opportunity for a spreadsheet trick called pivot tables. So what you can probably do is just I'm going to just show this. You'll probably need to watch the video multiple times. It took me a while to learn how to do. I'm going to hit Command A, and it puts a big blue box around all of the student data. And if you scroll down, you can confirm that it's selected all of your data. Note, I've run into this a few times. If there's a missing row in your data, a blank row in your data, it won't select all the way down to the bottom of your data. And so you'll miss a big chunk of data. So I think it's always worth just going down to the bottom, making sure you've done the whole thing. There's a good trick for doing this. If you hit Command, and if you were up at the top, if you hit Command, hold the Command key down next to the spacebar, and then you hit the down arrow key, it goes down to the bottom, and you can see, okay, there's 757 rows in this table. And now I hit Command A to select all, or you can go to the Edit menu and do select all. Well, I don't even know. Where is select all? Copy. No, I don't know where Command A is. I guess it's just something you need to know. There must be a way to do it in the menus up here, but that sure didn't work. Okay, once you've got it selected, what you do, once you hit Command A and you get everything selected, then you go to uh, Data and you go down and you'll see there's this option for Pivot Table. You hit Pivot Table and it's going to say, should I make a new sheet? You want it to make a new sheet. Hit Create. It makes a new sheet. And this new sheet is going to have over on the right side, going to have a bunch of information that it's going to ask you about the sheet, what you want to put in. It's going to ask you, first of all, what should the rows in your sheet be? What are the rows going to be? Well, we want names to be our rows. We want to know for each student like how many corrects did they get out of their assignments. So I hit add here and I do student name. And so now in my rows, I have all the student names and it's already started making, you can't see this, but it's already started making the table. Over here on the left is all of my student names. I can hit this, which makes that, what is that thing called? This column go to the size of the student name. So I've got a nice selected list of all the student names. Then I hit add for columns and for columns, I want to know what score they got on each of the assignments. So I choose assignment name. So I've got my rows and I've got my columns, and it took a long time to do that, to kind of come back from blinking, because there's so many assignments that I've already assigned. I don't want to pull every one of those assignments one by one in. So what I do, and the way I've been approaching Khan Academy, is I assign a set of Khan Academy exercises, 10 to 15 Khan Academy exercises every week. And I make the due date on those Khan Academy exercises like Saturday at midnight or Sunday at noon or Sunday at 6 p.m. And then you can filter this pivot table based on that due date and only see the assignments due at that time. So I'm going to grab the assignments due last week at Saturday, and I'm giving, students who turned in their work late, I'm going to give them full credit for it. Really, the way I approach Khan Academy is kind of mastery-oriented work. If students turned it in late, I want to give them the same credit as if they turned it in early. What I care about is whether they learned the math skill. So Khan Academy does really well at that. The obstacle in the past to using it has always been that I can't integrate my grades in Khan Academy with the grades in Aspen. Well, now you can see all I do is I click due date here, and it right now it's showing all items. I don't want it to show all items. I want it to show only the ones due on October 17th. So I open this up, I hit clear, I choose October 17th, I hit OK, and now up here, only the Khan Academy exercises that were due on October 17th show. And there's a pretty small list, only 4 in this particular batch of assignments. I think I have 11 this week, and I'm going to do 15 or so next week as we ramp up to full speed. And now you can see in the table, there's no data showing. So how do I get data showing? Well, I need to tell it what data I want it to show. That's what values is about. Values is the values in the table. So you hit add and you go in here, and the values I want, well, I want to look at 2 things. I want to look at the best score that the student got and the points that are possible on the assignment. So I'm going to do score best ever first. And that'll show me for each student on each assignment what's the best score that they ever got on that assignment. A 0 corresponds to them never having tried or gotten none of the questions correct. One of the things that's interesting, if you didn't care about what their best ever score is, if all you wanted them to do was to have done the assignment, whether they got it right or wrong, you can change this sum right here. Instead of sum, you can make it count A. And now, if they've done it before, it'll put a 1. If they never did it, it'll put a 0. And so all these zeros, frightening number of zeros, all these zeros correspond to students who never did the assignment. And over here under grand total, That's the total. So for this student, did 4 out of 4, 4 out of 4, 4 out of 4, 4 out of 4, 4 out of 4. This student only did 1 out of 4 of the assignments. Yikes! Need a parent call for that one. And 0 out of 4 for this one. Talk to the students about this. Uh, I'm going to go back to some though, because this is how I generally do it once we've established norms in the classroom. I want students to keep doing the exercise. If they only get 1 out of 4 correct, that's great, but it means that that's a ripe opportunity for learning. And I want them to work more on that exercise, whether they come to see me in office hours, watch the videos that I make, whatever they do. I want them to keep trying until they get to the perfect score on that assignment. And I want to reward them in their grade for getting to that place. So I change it to some, and now it's going to calculate instead of the best ever. You can see this top student, the student at the top row, got 11 out of some number, and I don't know what number. I can kind of tell looking down this. The highest number that I see in any of these is 16, so it's probably 11 out of 16, but I'm not sure. I want to make sure. So what I can do is I can add another value to the table of points possible, and it now shows, not only does it show the score that the student got, like this student got 3 on this first assignment, but it also shows the points possible on that assignment, 4. This next one, 0 out of 4, 4 out of 4, 4 out of 4, and that adds up to 11 out of what we suspected, 16. So you can see this 16 here. And so we have 11 out of 16, 16 out of 16, 14 out of 16. And we know that the way I put the grades into Aspen, the way I put grades in is I like to do a percent. So I want to put a percent in. So I could grab this data, this data right here. I could grab this data and put it in if I was using a points-based system. And many of you who use points-based systems, I know, and that's totally a great way to use it. Right, so I'd put 11 and I'd make the assignment out of 16. But I make my Khan Academy assignments out of 100, and I convert these to percents. And especially, so the way I can do that is I can just go over, and this is still a spreadsheet. Even though you don't see the lines of the spreadsheet, it's still just a regular spreadsheet. So I can go into column L, which is to the right of this, and I can say equals, and I can say this cell 11, out of what's the maximum total, 16. And I hit enter, and now it calculates, instead of just the 11, I can have this percent, 0.6875. And Aspen does percents instead of as numbers. So I'm going to actually take that value and multiply it by 100. And now I have 68.75, and I don't have to copy that. I don't have to do that over and over. I can just scroll down, and I can get Command D to copy this formula that I've just created all the way down, or I can grab this little doohickey in the corner and drag it down, and now I've got all those grades all the way down. All that data. And I want to put this data, this is the data that I would put into Aspen. But if you're looking at this, and one thing that you can do is you can say equals average, and I can look at what the average of that data is, and a 64 just feels like too low for me for homework. There's a lot of grades that are below 50% here. There's a lot of students who just haven't acclimated to doing the work that I'm expecting them to do. So, I want to balance this. So how do I do that? Well, I can take, and instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of use a condenser mic, just like I'm using a condenser mic to record my voice. I'm going to use a condenser mic on these grades. I'm going to take that span of grades that goes from 0 to 100, and I'm going to condense those down, squish those down, and make it go from 50 to 100. And I'll eventually expand that range as students get comfortable. But right now, I want to make it so the lowest score a student can get, who just doesn't do anything, is a 50, which is still failing, but it's a failing that they can recover from the next week if they get back on track. So that's how I'm approaching remote learning. All of you, approach it however you want, but I just wanted to show you how to do that in grades in Khan Academy and any tool that's generating spreadsheet-based grades. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that kind of 0.6875, take that decimal value of the percent, and I'm going to multiply it by 50 and then add it to 50. So in other words, this student in the top row is going to get 68.75% of 50 plus 50. And if it was 100%, they'd get 100% of 50 plus 50, which they'd still have 100. If they didn't do any of the work, they'd get 0% of 50, which is 0 plus 50 is 50. So you see how they get that minimum of 50 and the maximum of 100. So the way to write that formula, I go up here and I have the row J4 times 16. That generates my percent. I'm going to multiply that not by 100, but by 50. And then I'm going to add 50. And so now that student, who I think did pretty well, I'm also thinking about each of these students individually and thinking about how much work they're putting in and whether I think they're putting in a reasonable amount of work on the work. And I think an 84 represents a pretty fair grade for that student. They've done a B level of work. And then I hit Command D to fill those down. And the students who didn't do their work are still getting D's and F's. So, if I'm using grades to reflect back to the students what their effort in the course is and what their performance in the course is, I don't think I'm failing to communicate anything by using this approach. I think I still am able to communicate just as much detailed information to the student. So now, how do I take this data now that we've generated this column? And it took us however many 30 minutes to generate this column. I can tell you that after you practice it, and if you've got kind of all the steps memorized, I can do this in a couple of minutes at most, 2 minutes. And so it takes the grading process of pulling grades from Khan Academy into Aspen. It takes that down from a multi-hour thing to 2 minutes per class per assignment. It's really pretty fast once you learn how. So how do I get this data into Aspen now that I've generated this column? Well, I select it first of all. Then I go over and I need to also select the student name column. And the way to do that is I have my mouse hovering in the top cell. I hold Command down. I click with my mouse in that top cell and I go to the bottom cell. And I don't know how much of this you're going to be able to see after I blur everything, so I'm trying to describe it as clearly as possible. What I've done is I've selected, I have the two rows that are blue is the row with the student names and the row with the grades I want to copy into Aspen. That's the key step. Once you get that done, you hit Command C and you copy it. It's now in the clipboard. I've put the data that is the student names, that column, the student names, and next to it, the student grades, names and grades. I've copied those two. And if I was to go to the spreadsheet and paste it in another cell, I'd get names and grades right next to each other, right? I've copied that data, names, grades. Now I can put that into grade transfer. And the first thing you might do when you go up here, this is what I did, and it took me a while to figure this out, is I hit select platform and I go over here to Google Sheets and I click it, and this platform is unsupported for grabbing data. Wait, what? All this video and it doesn't even work? No, that's not how you do it. It's a little tricky. Instead of doing that, what you do is you go up into grade transfer and you see this clipboard. Remember how we put the names and the grades into the clipboard? What this is going to do is it's going to pull the data from the clipboard, copy names and grades from anywhere using Control C, or in the case of Mac, Command C, and click that, and there we go. Our 28 students have their 28 grades. I scroll down and I glance at a few. At this point, I've done this so many times that I'm not even really glancing at it. I really trust this software. It's never made a mistake at this task that I'm describing right now. It just copies that data, pulls it right in, you know, boom, I've got that data. Now I go back over to Aspen and I want to put the data in there. And the rest of this process is identical to how we did it with Google Classroom. There's a little magnifying glass with the arrow. I click that so I can do single assignment mode. I'm in single assignment mode in Aspen now, and I want to put that data in there. Uh, I know that sometimes it's missing the student at the bottom, so I just scroll down to the bottom. I'm going to hit grade transfer. I'm going to click select platform and choose Aspen. I can see with that little briefcase that it's got my 28 grades stored in grade transfer. I hit Aspen, gives me the warning message. I hit OK, and it put all the data in there except for one student. And so I go and I look and I'm like, why did it not put that one student? I have not figured this out. It's definitely a bug. It definitely leaves me concerned. I'm concerned that if I was doing this with all the other columns in there, it might just deposit that grade in some other random column. It's why I'm always using single assignment mode for doing this. But I've checked the grades, every single grade against the list, a number of times. If it leaves a blank, then you fill in the blank. If it puts the grade, then it's going to be correct. And I still like to spot check, a few of these just to make really sure. But again, I've done this enough times, I haven't seen an issue. So I see the grade that's missing, 90.625. I wait a moment as these yellows don't click away from this page while they're still yellow, or it won't copy the data. That yellow is Aspen hasn't. It's an indication that Aspen has not yet updated its database with the data that's stored in that cell in your browser. So I go into this cell, I type in manually that one missed grade, and I see my average here, 82.143. I go back over to my spreadsheet and I see 82.143 that it matches. It's another piece of confirmation that it correctly copied the grades. And we're done with Khan Academy. That was a lot. Feel free to ask me, anybody who's trying to make these pivot tables work, make something like that work. Nearpod works too. I'll show you Delta Math really quick. I'm no Delta Math expert. But in Delta Math, I haven't even used it with my classes yet. All of my classes are experiencing technology overload. As you might imagine, I've introduced an overwhelming amount of technology to students to kind of support this insane context that we're in, this challenging context that we're in. But I'd want to use Delta Math, but I'm going to wait until students really feel like they have expertise on all the tools I've already introduced. Up here at the top, download to Excel. You can click that button. I've already done it. You get a file. I only have 2 students. I have a couple of assignments that I've put in. Once you upload the file to Google Drive, you can open it in Google Drive. I have this file here, multiple assignments. This format is actually a bit more receptive to grade transfer, but there is a complication. When you open it in Google Sheets, the complication, I'm going to clear this out because this wasn't here before. I want to show you what it looked like when I first got here. Wait, still loading. Okay, so this wasn't here before. When I first got here, it looked like this when I first imported the data. I have the first name of the student and the last name of the student. And over here, I have the grades for all the assignments, and it's going to list out all the assignments over here. Right? I need to have all the student names in one column, all the grades in another column. I kind of did those backwards. It's reversed. I'm raising my right hand, and in the video, it looks like I'm raising my right hand. Yeah, I always get confused by this. Anyways, uh, over here on on this side, on this side, uh, the I need to get all those names into the same column. So what you can do, another spreadsheet function, you can go in here and you can use the concatenate function. You're going to pull the last name and the first name together. I hit the equals key to enter a formula. And now I type in concatenate. It's a word that means stick together. And I hit the open parentheses, or I guess I can click this. And it gives me some hints. These are the strings that I'm putting together. Well, what do I want to put together? I want to do last name, did it again, last name, comma, space, first name, right? So how do I get that to happen? Well, I'm going to tell it last name, click there, B2, comma, and then how do I put the comma and the space in the actual data? Well, I put double parentheses, then I hit comma, space, and double parentheses. So it's actually going to concatenate the last name, with comma, space, and then what do I need to put after that? The first name. So I put another comma to indicate the third value being concatenated, and I click first name, and I close my parentheses, and I hit enter, and I confirm that it looks right. Eric, comma, space, Henry. There it is. And then I can do the same thing where I grab this little corner piece here and pull it down, and pull it all the way down. If you got 30 students, I only have 2 in my test data, pull it down, and you have your grade column. And so then you leave that selected and you go over to your grades. Let's say I want to pull in test 2. I hold command down, the command key next to the space bar. I select those 2 grades. Now I've got the names and the grades selected. I hit command C to copy it into the clipboard. I go up to grade transfer. I choose the clipboard icon. This is the data of the 2 students that were successfully retrieved. Henry, Eric, 100, test 100. Okay, and then you go back to Aspen and you follow the rest of the procedure. Thank you everyone for following along. That was, like all of my videos end up being, far longer than I intended. 100 points for the perseverance. Yay, OB.